Welcome back to the table. Last episode, we talked about discipline, about stability, about building something steady in our lives. But here's the part we didn't talk about. You can have structure, you can have routine, you can even have your life dialed in, and you can still feel alone. Today I want to talk about something that affects almost all of us, whether we admit it or not. And that's the brotherhood problem. Or what some people call the loneliness epidemic among men. And the truth is, a lot of us won't say that we're lonely. We'll say we're busy. We say we're tired. We say we're focused on work. Focused on our family. And most of those things might be true. But sometimes they're also shields. Because somewhere along the way, we stopped building real connections with other men. Not the surface level, not memes back and forth, not sending the reels back and forth. Real, true conversation. During this episode, I want you to ask yourself two questions. When was the last time you had a conversation that wasn't surface level? And when was the last time another man checked on you and you answered honestly? This isn't an episode about blaming women. It's not about blaming society. It's about noticing what's missing and deciding whether we're willing to rebuild it. So come on in, grab your drink of choice, get settled, and pull up a chair. Something that most of us don't really realize is that our friendships don't explode. They just slowly evaporate. The friendships that men lose aren't lost in the same way that women's are. Theirs explode. There's some type of fight, either physical or verbal. And with men, there's no argument. There's no betrayal. It's normally just less effort by one or both people in the friendship. That's when it starts turning into the we'll catch up soon conversations. I see this in my own life. I'm living it right now. My best friend Coulter and I used to talk constantly. Real conversations about life, about pressure, and just in general about what we're building with our lives. Now, we send each other reels. We'll react to them. We might send a quick comment back. But that's pretty much it. And it's not because we don't care about each other. It's not because anything happened between us. Our lives just got full. We both had kids. We both got married. I moved from Texas to Kentucky and then back home to Texas. We just got deeper involved with our own families. And we never fought for the time or the space between us. The crazy part about all that is, I have a small circle. And I'm perfectly fine living this way. I don't need a huge group of friends. I don't need constant noise. I have culture here in Texas. I reconnected with another friend that I haven't seen in almost 10 years just last week. I have a friend that I talk to daily that lives up in Kentucky. I have 2 other friends that live in Washington that I talk to on a daily basis, or almost daily basis. I have people, but I still get lonely. And that's not because I don't love my life. It's not because I'm ungrateful. And it's not because I don't have people. But it's because there's a difference between talking and just being known. There's a difference between sending reels and having someone sit in the weight of what you're carrying with you. Loneliness for men doesn't always look like isolation. Sometimes it looks like functioning. You go to work, you handle your responsibilities, you text your boys, you send the memes, and everything looks good. But underneath that, deep down, there's this quiet feeling that there's something missing. And most of us aren't willing to admit that. Because we view loneliness as failing at relationships. And that's not what it means. It just means we need depth, and depth takes effort. So let me ask you something else. How many of you have your own culture? And when was the last time you fought for the space? When we were younger, friendship was just naturally built into our lives. It was in school, through sports, even when we moved on to college, and in our work crews. You're always around each other. You didn't have to schedule the connection. Damn it, it just happened. You saw each other automatically. But then adulthood changes everything. Everything in your life becomes required. Marriage, kids, career, bills, home maintenance if you own your home, and in some cases rent, appointments, and then schedules. Adulthood is when friendships become optional. And for most of us, the first thing that we cut from our lives are the things that are optional. Not because they don't matter, but because they don't feel urgent. Now let's go a little bit deeper. Men are wired and taught to prioritize responsibility. When you become a husband, when you become a father, your entire mindset shifts. You start thinking in terms of provision, of protection, and of handling the things that are in front of you. You don't wake up asking, how can I build the brotherhood today? you wake up asking what's next that needs to be handled. And over time, that way of thinking just becomes your identity. You become dependable. You become steady. You become somebody that you can rely on. And that's not wrong. That's something that's very, very honorable. But here's what most of us don't notice. It's not that we don't always have time for friendships. Technically, we have the time. What we're really lacking in is the energy. After work, after parenting, after being present for your partners, you don't have enough emotional bandwidth left to invest into another conversation. And friendships, they require energy. It requires listening. It requires vulnerability. It requires intention. And when your energy is already spent on the responsibility, connection starts to feel like just another task. So we make a silent trade. We trade depth for stability. We trade connection for control. We tell ourselves, as long as everything at home is steady, I'm good. And we ignore that part of us that says we still need that brotherhood. We still need those relationships. We still need that connection. And we don't do it intentionally. It's just something that gradually happens. Responsibility isn't the enemy. But as responsibility grows and the connection doesn't grow with it, that's when the drift becomes to deepen. You're still showing up. You're still doing the right things. You're still carrying all that weight. But instead of having a community to carry it with you, you're doing it all by yourself. Now let's get into the part we don't like to admit. If we know the drift is happening, why don't we just fix it? Why don't we pick up the phone? Why don't we send the text? Why don't we say, hey man, I need to talk? It's not because we don't care. It's because reaching out feels vulnerable. And vulnerability feels unfamiliar to a lot of us. We tell ourselves we don't want to bother someone. We tell ourselves, oh, they're just busy. We tell ourselves if he needed me, he'd call. But underneath that, that's when the ego comes in. There's the pride that comes in. There's this quiet belief that I should be able to handle this on my own. Throughout our childhoods, we're taught to carry the weight ourselves, not share it. We're taught to push through and keep on trucking, not open up. So instead of reaching out, we just isolate ourselves quietly. And that loneliness grows quietly, in silence. Again, it's not because we don't have people, but it's because we don't want to let anybody see us. And that's different. There's a difference between having friends and letting them know you're struggling. And a lot of us have friends. We just don't like letting them in. So if responsibility caused the drift, and our egos keep us from reaching out. What does the brotherhood really require? It requires intention. It requires effort. It requires someone deciding, this matters enough to fight for. Brotherhood isn't built on convenience. It's built on consistency. It's not built on reels and reactions or memes. It's built on real conversations. And real conversations take courage. Sometimes you gotta be that one that calls first. Sometimes you gotta be the one who says, hey bro, are you actually good? Are you actually handling what you're carrying without diving too deep, not diving too deep into it, but really going deeper into the conversation and not just staying at the surface level. And you have to be able to answer that question honestly. If you don't answer it honestly, then the only person that you're hurting is yourself. Brotherhood also requires responsibility. But it's not the same type of responsibility that you carry on a day-to-day basis. It's the responsibility of not letting the men in your life disappear quietly. It's the responsibility of making time, of making space, of putting in that effort. Even when your life is full. That's something that I'm learning right now. Even though my life is full with everything that I have going on, I'm still going to start making an effort to reach out to my friends. And more than just the memes, more than just the reels. You got to do it when you're tired. I mean, here I am, 12:39 a.m. Monday morning, 6 hours before I release this episode to my Patreon members. And here I am speaking to y'all because these topics are important. These topics are something that need to be done so that we have a space where we can breathe, where we can have time to ourselves and be around brothers. And it's even when it would be easier not to, The brotherhood is something that requires effort from all of us in it. We don't need to be walking this planet alone. And this type of stuff doesn't just happen accidentally. It takes that effort. It happens intentionally. You have to go out there and look for what go out there and get what you're looking for. You have to go out there and say, hey, look, bro, I'm not feeling good. Hey, bro, I'm not feeling right about XYZ. You just got to make it happen for yourself. Now let's get into something that's a little deeper. That's going to hit home a little harder for all of us. Here's something that I had with my son lately. It was just a little moment that I had with my son. And it hit me a lot harder than I expected it to. I was sitting at my kid's school in their pickup line. My son was sick that day. Just listening to music, working on the podcast episode, specifically this one. And, my son was in the back seat being goofy, singing along to the song. And he started making little hearts with his hands. He started leaning forward and he put his arm on me and cocked his head to the side, and it was just one moment of just pure love. And in that moment, I felt it, I felt the weight, I felt the responsibility, and I felt the love of my son. And that's when the realization hit me like a freight train. He's watching me. All three of my kids are watching me, but my boys are watching me the most. He's watching how I live. He's watching how I show up for him, for his brother, for his sister, for his mom. He's watching how I handle the stress or how I don't handle the stress. And one day he's going to follow in my footsteps in a way that he's going to use what I do to build his own friendships and to build his own relationships. He's going to learn whether we have these types of conversations, if we lean on other people to help carry the weights that we have on our shoulders, or if we just keep it to ourselves. He's going to learn whether brotherhood is normal or whether isolation is, because it's not about us anymore. And this is what really hit me. It's not that it's just, oh, this is my life. No, we're modeling this for our kids. We're showing our kids what we should be doing and what we should not be doing, or just what we are and what we are not doing. If we normalize shallow connection, he might do the same thing. Your kids might do the same thing. If I normalize not reaching out, he might do the same thing. If I normalize carrying everything alone on my shoulders and only leaning on my wife when I absolutely have to, he might think that that's what strength looks like, and it's not. I don't want him growing up thinking that the life that we have is what normal lives look like. I don't want him growing up thinking that a man has to be alone, that a man has to suffer silently on his own. That's the real missed opportunity in all of this. It's not just losing friendships, but it's showing our kids that that's just normal. And I'm not about that life. I don't want my kids growing up with these friends that they make now when they're in elementary school, and as they grow older, those relationships just spread out farther and farther away from each other. Even if we move, we'll find ways to stay in contact with the parents so that we can keep them in touch. There's always ways that we can make sure that our kids don't grow up the same ways that we did. And we have to make sure that happens. Otherwise, we're just repeating the process. Even if we're breaking generational punishments or trauma or any of that, we're still building onto it because we're not taking the steps to ensure that we have the friends, we have the brotherhood, we have the things that we need to have for ourselves. And that's where the real problem is. If this episode made you think about someone, or it made you really think about your kids, or if it just really made you think about yourself, don't wait. Don't overthink any of it. Send the text to your friend. Make that call. Fight for that space. Fight for that time between you and your brother. Go show your kids that you're capable of building that brotherhood that we all need. I know I'm going to work harder on it with my kids. I'm going to show my kids that it's important to have friends over, to have to have friends help build your village. Because that's what we all need. We need a village. Because that's a big part of raising kids. You don't do it alone. You have a village to help you do it. And that's not just your wife. That's not just your in-laws. That's not just your parents. That's not just your siblings. And for those of us who don't have siblings, I'm not included in that. I have 4 or 5 brothers that drive me absolutely insane, and I miss them, and I love them dearly. But it's not just about your immediate family. It's about your friends. It's about saying, hey, look, man, come hang out with me and the boys for a little bit. For me, that's how it is. Come hang out with me and my kids for a little bit. We can let them go run around at the park or whatever. And don't do it because you're desperate. Don't do it because I'm sitting here saying, oh, you have to go do it. Because that's not what I'm saying. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's because it matters. Having that brotherhood matters. Having that depth matters. And loneliness doesn't have to be the default setting for us. A lot of us believe it is. But it's not. It's not the default setting for men. We're not lonely creatures. You don't got to go out there and get 85 million guys and have them all be your friend. You don't need a huge circle. You don't need constant chaos in your life. That's not what this is about. But you do need depth. You do need that brotherhood. You do need people that you can rely on. We need to make it to where we're not just a statistic anymore. And that's what we are. Because of how lonely we get, we become a statistic. So ask yourself this, just throughout your day-to-day life. Who's your Coulter? And when was the last time you fought for that space between you and him? I just want to say thank you again for listening. Thanks for pulling up a chair. I hope to see you again next time here at the Roundtable for Men.